You are watching this video after 3 days of me eating absolutely nothing. I starved myself for 3 days. I drank only water. Now, if you've been following me for a little while, you will know that I am actually trying to bulk up, right? I'm not concerned with cutting right now. I'm trying to bulk up and gain muscle mass. So why did I do a 3-day fast? And the honest truth is, while I've been bulking up pretty successfully for a little while now, I've been gaining pound after pound after pound, even higher than the recommended amount of weight gain of 1 pound per week. It hasn't all been good weight. I've been eating a lot, there's been a lot of brain fog, and I've noticed that much of the weight that I've put on is actually body fat. It's not lean mass, right? And that kind of concerned me because, well, it feels good to see the weight scale go up. Obviously, the end goal is lean mass. Then a couple days ago, I came across a video by someone called Nick Angelo, and he spoke about dieting and how he doesn't really cut or bulk. Instead, he follows the same consistent 12-day cycle. This 12-day cycle consists of 9 days of overfeeding and 3 days of straight fasting. And when I heard this, I thought it was completely crazy because I had never heard anyone else talk about this before. The only exception was my father had done a couple of 3-day fasts in the past just because he wanted to lose some fat, right? He wanted to get leaner, stuff like this. But for bodybuilding, I had never heard of anything like that. But then thinking back to my issues with bulking, I decided to try it out and see what would happen. Now, in a second, I'm going to show you my transformation and the story of the 3 days of my fast. But first, I dug into the research on the benefits of a 72-hour fast, and I want to share them with you. First off, and this is the point that Nick Angelo made, it increases insulin sensitivity. So insulin resistance, in case you don't know, is when the insulin receptors in your body that process, your blood sugar and stuff like that, and they receive insulin, when they receive too much insulin, it leads to insulin resistance. Think about how you become resistant to certain medications if you continually take the same dose, right? And so you have to kind of up the dose. Does that make sense? Because your body becomes numb to it. In the same way, your insulin receptors become numb to actual insulin from the food that you eat, right? From the blood sugar, the carbs, and the other food that you eat. When you become insulin resistant, this is in type 2 diabetes, by the way, right? When they have really bad diets and they're extremely overweight. When you become insulin resistant, your body has a hard time processing the food that you eat. When that happens, instead of the food you're eating going to a meaningful purpose, it normally just ends up going to fat, right? So fat gain becomes almost automatic and actual nutrient use is harder. A 72-hour fast significantly improves your insulin sensitivity so that your body can use food more effectively. Another benefit of a 72-hour fast is autophagy. This is the cellular process that recycles damaged proteins and organelles. Deep cellular cleansing, that's what this is. That triggers on a 72-hour fast. So fasting actually has a lot of benefits. It's very good for you. You get reduced inflammation and a partial immune system reset when you do a 72-hour fast. Inflammation goes down, your immune system is given a chance to reset and become stronger. And you also gain, this is a huge one for a 72-hour fast, a 3-day fast, fat loss without much muscle loss. So it's almost completely fat. The main benefit of this is losing a large portion of weight that is fat while having very minimal actual lean mass lost. You normally get brain and cognitive benefits from fasting. People report being more focused, being more present when they're fasting, having less brain fog when they're fasting. I've also experienced that as well in short-term fasting. Not exactly in this fast, but I'll explain that in a moment. And finally, fasting is linked to longevity, living a long life, and disease prevention, right? Probably because it kind of resets the immune system. That was a point that we went over before. All of those are great benefits to try a 72-hour fast, but I was only interested in two. That is rapid fat loss with minimal muscle mass lost And B, I wanted to reset my insulin sensitivity. I wanted to make sure I wasn't insulin resistant because honestly, I was beginning to suspect that I had become insulin resistant. The reason was I had been bulking for a long time, very carb heavy meals, kind of like nuking my blood sugar, making my blood sugar super high. And I wasn't like letting off the pedal, if that makes sense. I was just constantly eating very, very carb heavy meals. I would try to get in complex carbs, which your body can process better without spiking your blood sugar. But that couldn't always work for me. A lot of times I just had to, eat whatever carb source I could come up with. I was eating a ton of carbs, a ton of food, and I don't think I was giving my body a chance to reset, right? And I began to notice that I started to have, I think, some symptoms of insulin resistance. Brain fog, loss of mental clarity, drowsiness, and it felt like my body wasn't processing the nutrients that I gave it correctly. I was getting bigger, but I wasn't getting much stronger. And so I suspected maybe most of that is just going to fat because I'm insulin resistant and it's becoming harder for me to put on muscle mass. Now, I'm going to go over my experience and my recommendation in a second, but first, there are some reasons not to do a 3-day fast. The main ones are if you have existing medical conditions that make it kind of a little unsafe for you to do a full 3-day fast, right? Sometimes you need to have medical supervision if you're going to do this fast. I didn't because I'm a healthy young male and I don't really think anything bad was going to happen. I'd seen my father do it before as well. It's mostly safe, but obviously if you have existing medical conditions, that could screw things up. 2, you want to gradually lose weight, go on a cut, or do like less intense fasts. If you're more concerned with that, with the benefits of less intense fasts, for example, fasting for a day, then you don't have to do a 3-day fast. Remember, the reason that I wanted to do a 3-day fast was so that I could rapidly lose fat, right? And kind of like snap my body back into being healthy, being insulin sensitive, and losing a bunch of fat. But if you're not concerned with doing that instantly, then obviously you can do a more slow-paced kind of fast. I love bulking, and so I wanted to scrape off fat and reset my body without spending several months doing so. And reason number 3 is that you're a bitch and you don't want to do it. Now, I kind of say that as a joke, but honestly, it's kind of a valid reason. This was a very, very difficult thing to do. I had cravings the entire time, and I felt bad the entire time. I'm going to cover that in a second. But it was not a fun experience. I'm super proud that I did it. I'm super proud that I accomplished the hard thing, but it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. So if you don't feel like going through that, right, if you'd rather do kind of a less intense method to lose fat and improve your insulin sensitivity and get all the other benefits, then I completely understand. So when I decided to do this 3-day fast, it's actually Wednesday morning. I'm going on my run. I'm thinking over the benefits that I've researched and what Nick Angelo said, and I decided, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. If, it doesn't go my way, if my bulk gets messed up, I'll just begin bulking again, and because I know how to do that kind of easily now. So, any negative that comes from this will be reversible. The first thing that I notice is on day 1, I'm really bored. Cravings aren't super bad. I'm like hungry because my body expects the normal amount of food. So, my stomach starts growling every time it's lunchtime or dinner time. But it's not that bad. My brain doesn't crave food yet. My body just does. But the first thing that I notice is I am extremely bored. Like really just super bored. I had underestimated just how much during the day I spend cooking and eating. It's easily like 4 to 5 hours of my day is spent cooking and eating the food. I make big meals, so it takes like 15 to 30 minutes to cook all of them, and then easily an hour to eat all of my meals, not to mention snacks. And so a huge portion of the time I spent during the day was just cooking and eating food. When I didn't have that anymore, I was extremely bored. I had nothing to kind of break my day up from morning, because this is how I kind of broke my day up before, morning and then afternoon, right? And then evening when I kind of just relaxed. Normally breakfast, lunch, and dinner broke that up. Now I didn't have that. I was bored, but at the same time, like, I knew I had stuff to do, but it was kind of weird to just go straight into working, go straight into studying, go straight into my productive activities with no breaks, nothing in between to kind of break it up. And I just had basically like probably 5 hours extra in the day from not eating. That might sound kind of nice, like, oh, now you have more time in the day to get things done. But it really wasn't. It was extremely uncomfortable. You know, when you start living a certain way for a long period of time, you're just not used to having so much more time, especially when you normally have activities planned. Okay, like now it's dinner time and then I'm going to go to bed. Instead, it was, well, it's kind of late now. I'm going to drink a big glass of water and then I guess I'll go to sleep. I started to really begin craving food around dinner time of day one. That's when my brain would start to kind of like picture myself eating food. I could almost like taste salty tastes or sweet tastes or stuff with carbs, almost like bread. I could imagine myself eating that because my body was getting hungry. My brain was telling me, hey, it's time to eat. But I didn't. I just had a big glass of water and then I went to bed. I woke up day two feeling really good. I normally eat a huge meal right before bed, basically every day that I was bulking, right? Because I'm trying to get food in during all of the day. And so I eat from when I wake up to when I go to sleep. I'm just a hard gainer that way. That's the way I have to gain weight. If I don't eat constantly, then I don't end up gaining weight. The problem with that is that when you eat right before bed, it messes up sleep. You can't enter certain cycles, stuff like that. It's really bad for you. So you shouldn't do it. But I was always doing it. When I was fasting, that was the first night that I hadn't done that in a long time. And so I woke up actually feeling kind of good. I felt like really rested. I felt energetic for some reason. And so I kind of like jumped out of bed. I was excited, right? I was excited to seize the day, to get after my goals. And I didn't have any breakfast to stop me. So I basically had a glass of water at the breakfast table. And then I began working on my computer. Day two was the day that I began to notice actual like physical symptoms. I very quickly began feeling sick, almost like I had a disease, right? I was under the weather. This is possibly because it was the first time I'd ever done something like this. My body wasn't used to it. It was used to eating all of the time, and so I felt, really, really bad. It felt almost like I had a fever, but I didn't have the increased temperature, right? I felt weaker, I felt more tired, but at the same time my brain felt more active and unable to relax. It could also be because of another issue that I'm going to talk about in a second that I think probably had a role in it. Day two, the boredom got really, really bad. After I completed like some work, because I didn't have that much work that day, I didn't really know what to do with myself. I had the entire day clear. I didn't have to eat. I'm so used to like eating all of the time, and I didn't know what to do with myself at all. And I was hungry, but I knew I couldn't eat. The cravings got really bad on day two, and there was actually a barbecue at our local bank, just like a public kind of like, they do a barbecue. They had like a raffle or some shit, and I ended up driving my brother down there because no one else could. And they had the best looking barbecue sandwiches that I've ever seen in my life. It was probably just because I was fasted, but they had the best barbecue sandwiches ever. And I could only think to myself, you really picked the worst time to do a 3-day fast. So I missed out on a free lunch. The ladies were really insistent on me eating some of it. They were like, you want some? You want some? It's really good. But I knew I couldn't, and so I just politely declined. So that sucked. And then I would randomly get visualizations of pizza. I'm not joking, by the way. I'd be sitting on the couch, like, watching a YouTube video or something, and then, like, an image of a pizza would pop into my head, and I'd be like, man, that'd be really good. My brain really wanted me to eat. I was literally hallucinating pizza. So, yeah, there's that. Despite not eating, sleep was a bit shaky that night. I just didn't feel like I had the ability to relax. My body didn't feel well. Again, I felt like I was sick. And if you know, like when you have a fever, it's actually kind of hard to go to sleep, right? You get kind of like fever dreams. You like wake up a lot throughout the night, toss and turn. You can't really get to sleep easily. That was kind of the experience for me. Then came day three. Now, in case you don't know about 3-day fasting, the body uses several different sources of energy for fasting, right? Number one is glycogen in your muscles. So don't worry, this isn't actually muscle mass, but the glycogen stores in your muscles that help with power output when you're doing like a heavy lift, that gets used first in a fast. The glycogen stores in your muscles that help with a heavy lift, that gets used first in a fast, right? So your body first has to use all the glycogen in your body to fuel itself because it's not getting new calories, it's not getting fuel from food. So it begins using the glycogen in your muscles. Now this will make your muscles look smaller by the end of the fast and by the end of the time where your body ends up absorbing all of the glycogen. However, none of the actual muscle mass is lost. It's just glycogen stores in your muscles, which is easily replenished when you eat for like 1 to 3 days. After you begin eating, it's all basically back there. Now, the second source it goes to is ketones in fat. So after it has expended all the glycogen in your muscles, this is why a 3-day fast specifically is so useful. It begins working on fat. This is why you have to fast for like 2 days before it begins actually cutting into your fat stores. On day 3, I saw the most progress from the fast. So if day 1 to day 2, it was like I got 10% leaner, then day 3, I got like 25% leaner. I'm just guessing, I'm just making up those numbers, but that's an example, right? So I lost way more fat on the 3rd day than both the 1st and 2nd combined, and then some. So that was definitely good to see. I was glad that I could actually see some results from my fast, so I knew I was getting like some of the benefits. While it was difficult, I resisted eating for the 3rd day, and I planned out a big breakfast that I would eat on day 4 to break my fast. And before I show you the end result, here is a picture of my physique beforehand, just kind of for some reference. As you can see, I'm getting bigger, but I'm definitely not that cut. I've kind of lost some of the definition in my abs, and you can definitely tell I'm gaining body fat. After drinking a large glass of water and going to sleep early because I had nothing else to do with myself, I finally woke up on day 4 for breakfast.
Good morning. It is officially day 3 of my fast. 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm about to have a big breakfast with French toast and tons of carbs and tons of protein. It has been quite the journey. I am not used to doing a fast like this, but I've clearly lost weight. I'm down to 177.8 from like 185.6. So, and I can tell that a lot of that is body fat. So I feel way better being so much leaner. The cravings were very, very, very intense. It was a very, very difficult process, but it is completely worth it in my opinion. Yeah, it's been an adventure for sure.
I went down to the store, bought all of my ingredients, and cooked up my French toast. I actually ate half of the plate right now, but I'm going to give you a proper good morning. Cheers with coffee, and show you my dish here. This is all of my French toast. This is 3 slices stacked on top of each other. There was another 3 slices actually on this plate, but I ate it. It's a lot of food. The macros are about 1,800 calories, 67 grams of protein, 261 grams of carbs, which is a lot of carbs, and about 55 grams of fat in this meal, which is probably nuking my blood sugar after I just spent 3 days trying to reset my insulin sensitivity and whatever. So it's probably not ideal, but I thought I would treat myself. It's amazing. I can't believe I made it 3 days without eating. It's incredible. I highly recommend. I'm not sure that, if you don't do a full 3-day fast, I completely understand. But I think there's a lot of benefits to it, right? Especially when you're trying to cut fat off very, very quickly. It was super, super effective. I certainly weigh a lot less. However, I know that the weight that I still retain is muscle mass, and my body fat percentage is much, much lower. So Cheers to that. The reason that I am eating such a high calorie meal after my fast is I am not in a cut, I am in a bulk. So obviously, if you aren't trying to gain weight, if you're trying to keep losing weight, you would end your fast with something that was more low calorie. Of course, obviously, much more low carb, low sugar, low calorie. But I'm still in a bulk, so I'm trying to gain weight. If you want to know how I typically make high calorie meals, how I'm able to put together really, really, really high calorie meals, I'll be making a video soon. I'll call it like ingredient maxing or some shit like that. I'll explain how I've been able to make like really high calorie meals because I tend to be a hard gainer and I need to get way more calories in than the average person. So I'll be making a video like that very, very soon. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in kind of like hacking cooking in order to get way more calories in, then subscribe so that you will be notified when I drop that one. So what lessons can I extract from this experience? First of all, drink tons of water. You want to stay hydrated even though you are going on a fast, right? Water is extremely important to the human body. Without water, you will die. So even though your body can manage long-term fasting, it can't manage long-term dehydration. So make sure you stay hydrated, drink tons of water. This will actually be doubly important when you're not getting food in, to drink like just tons of water. You don't want to be dehydrated. Also, something that I did not do that I think I should have done that contributed to me feeling under the weather and sick and making the fast feel so horrible was I didn't take electrolytes. So what I should have been doing, I think, was I should have bought electrolyte packets and then I should have mixed that into my water because electrolytes are extremely important in staying hydrated. I believe that the reason that I felt so bad was because I wasn't having any electrolytes. And I kind of suspected it throughout the fast that this was like one of the reasons that I was feeling like shit. But I was just like, I didn't really care at that point when I was halfway through the fast. But if I did it a second time, which I probably will end up doing, I'm going to buy and take electrolytes. Tip number 3 is keep yourself occupied. Have stuff there to do instead of eating. If you just kind of idly sit there and try to find yourself stuff to do, you're going to think about food more, think about cooking and eating more. You're going to just get bored and discouraged. It's going to suck way more. You need to keep yourself occupied. Spend time, all the extra time, studying a new skill, studying a new trade, learning something you've always wanted to learn, maybe learning more about fitness, right? Learning more about anatomy, learning more about whatever you're into, right? Like computer science, stuff like that. And I think it's actually extremely important to not just spend time on pleasure activities. You can spend some of the extra time, kind of like filling it with, just consuming stuff, watching YouTube for entertainment, for example. However, you shouldn't spend all of that extra time doing that because you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna feel kind of guilty that you're not getting anything done, even though you have all this extra time. You're going to get more bored of it because you have all this extra time. And it's just not going to be that fun. You're going to be way more tempted to break the fast, to end the fast. If it's just like intellectually boring as fuck. That's actually worse than the actual cravings. Obviously, for those concerned with losing weight, do not do what I did and nuke your body with a heavy meal with carbs and a ton of sugar, so your blood sugar spikes. You nuke your insulin receptors, and you might contribute to insulin resistance a little bit again. If you're concerned with losing weight, don't do that. Of course, break your fast with kind of a small-ish meal. I only really don't care because I'm still bulking. I'm still concerned with bulking, so I still win in the end from the fast, even if I have a huge meal. And I tend to have genetics where it's a bit harder to put on fat than muscle mass, and so I'm not really worried about it that much. So basically, I don't mind treating myself because I just did a 3-day fast and I want to gain weight ultimately. But if you wanted to continue losing weight, then I would obviously focus on a lighter calorie meal. But regardless of your goals, you want to come out of the fast with a healthy diet, right? You want high protein, you want low refined carbs, you do not want to nuke your insulin again coming out of the fast, right, for a long period of time, because that will actually mess you up. That'll kind of undo the purpose of the fast. I did it for one meal, but I'm soon going to switch to a complex carb source. I'm going to switch to red meat whole foods. I don't want to do this 3-day fast and then just eat like shit for the remaining days. But I'm really looking forward to seeing now over the next week if my body will be more effective at building up muscle mass as I, am in a calorie surplus, as opposed to most of it going to fat, right? My kind of goal with this is, if I can get it to work, I want to create a diet cycle. This is something that he talked about in the video, Nick Angelo, where it's kind of like some amount of days of surplus and then 3 days fasting, right? So his example was 9 days of surplus and then 3 days of fasting. I think I'll have to tailor that to my specific genetic makeup because I tend to put on weight. It's more difficult for me to put on weight than it is for me to lose weight, right? Because we're all kind of like genetically different. But I kind of want to set up something like that because if I can stay lean while I'm bulking up a ton, if that's possible, then it'll save me a ton of time. And if the fasting ends up keeping me insulin sensitive, then I will be able to build muscle better, right? I'll be able to use the protein and the carbs that I eat easier, better, and it'll actually go to like a productive part of my body, muscle mass, instead of just like body fat. So I'm going to experiment in the coming weeks. It'll be something like either 9 days of surplus and 3 days of fasting, or it'll be 7 days of surplus, a day of fasting, something like that, right? So I'll experiment with different amounts of time that I fast, as well as different amounts of time that I am in a surplus, to see what I think works best for me. I'm a little worried that 9 days of surplus and then 3 days of fasting will be too little surplus for me, right? Too much fasting, too frequent fasting. But we'll see. I'll experiment with a bunch of stuff. Now, obviously, when I go into the gym today, I'm going to be weaker because basically all of the glycogen in my muscles got completely sapped out when it used that as a fuel source, which is part of the benefit of having a carb-heavy meal for breakfast this morning. But I still feel like I haven't lost any of my actual muscle mass. It's just like the glycogen stores are empty now, so I'm a bit smaller. But I feel like my lean muscle mass is still all there, which is an amazing feeling. I highly recommend that you try this fast for yourself. It's difficult, it's kind of hard to do, so it requires some discipline, it requires some willpower, but you'll feel super proud of yourself at the end, if nothing else, if you do this. Just make sure that you take electrolytes so you don't feel like shit. Let me know if that makes it better, makes it feel better. And yeah, whether you're bulking or cutting, like if you're cutting, it's a great fat loss tool, maybe the best. And if you're bulking, yes, you're gonna lose weight, but you're basically only cutting off fat anyways, and so, which you don't want. And so you can cut all that off with an extremely short fast. It's not like some month-long cutting phase, and then immediately start bulking again from a more solid base, right? So you know how much you actually weigh when you're a bit leaner, and you can start bulking up there, and maybe the insulin sensitivity will actually help you to build muscle faster and better. And if you have any fasting advice or tips on how to make fasting easier, go write a comment, go write like a thought out comment, so that you can provide other people value. We're all more informed, and maybe we can make this like a little bit easier for us to do. Anyways, I highly recommend that you try this. Even though it sucks, you'll feel super proud of yourself. I'm super proud that I managed to make it to day 4. I think like you should try it at least once, right? You want to try it at least once in your life to see what it's like, see if there's a benefit to it. But if you got any value from this video, there's something that you can do, which is a win-win for both of us, which is to scroll down and click the subscribe button. I win because I get a new subscriber. You win because anytime I have a new insight, learn something new, try something new, I can make a video and directly give you value. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.